There it is. For some reason, I feel like somebody should be stripping right now. Everybody, welcome to Drummers Education Connection. I'm Bart Robley. We're missing our friend Jeremy Steinkohler today, but we have a fantastic episode with Adam Tevlin from learningtodrum.com.
Yeah.
Welcome to Deck, Adam.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I love what you folks do. I think you guys are in year 4 of TEC, and so you guys not only cater to students but also educators, and I think these are great topics to discuss. So I'm ready to rock and roll with you folks.
Well, thank you so much for being on the show, Adam. Thank you.
Yeah, it means a lot to us. It means a lot to us. It really does. Being part of the community. So we're going to do our normal thing. Start with good things, like we always do. We got stuff going on that's good in our life, in drumming, outside of drumming, whatever. But start with good things. So let's throw it down to San Diego, to Rick Stojak. What's happening, Rick, and what's going on good in your life?
Yeah, down to San Diego, where it's sunny and warm.
Nice.
That's a good thing to start with. No, my real good thing is there is a new drum teacher listing out there called playdrums.com, and they have a drum teacher listing, and I was invited to join that. And it's like, I guess, a listing of drum teachers. There's some A players listed in there, and it's just like a by invite kind of thing only. And it's building up, and so it's just a real honor to be part of that. So it's really good. And then my Laura and Gene Hogan, my brother-in-law, and sister-in-law Laura Christine are just coming back from a fun little South America tour with Dark Angel. They just played in Chile with like 8,000 people, and so it's really, really exciting. So their new album is going to be coming out. So we're looking forward to that. So what about you, Chip? What's happening for you? What's good for you?
Oh, man, you know what? Can I try to share my screen with somebody?
Yeah, sure, go for it.
Is it okay with you guys? Okay, I'm going to share my screen for my good thing. And it's up there. I think I put it up there. It's ready to share.
There it is.
All right, here we go.
Monster.
Let's go. Let's go.
There you go.
That's a cell phone video that I took. Watching Gravedigger.
Yeah, buddy.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
You gotta watch till he comes back around and does a backflip, man. It's very cool. All right, that's enough.
I so want to try that.
That's cool stuff, man.
I think that was the best moment in deck history in all of our 203.
I have to agree. That was the best thing.
That was my good thing. I went to Gravedigger on my 33rd anniversary. Yeah.
Very cool, man. We you know what? We played one of those things one time.
Thanks,
we didn't
guys.
play that. We were at we're playing a state fair, and they were going on right behind the stage, like before we played, obviously. And man, that's something else to watch. That's really cool. That's really cool. Adam, what do you got going on that's a good thing, buddy?
It was loud.
Well, just leaving it off with where Chip left off. I actually took, I think it was probably about a year or two ago, to their first monster truck escapade. That was just right across the river in Illinois. We saw Gravedigger. Gravedigger was there. Yeah, yeah. Cool. And my boys got a kick out of it. It was super loud, which is like, that's why I play drums. I mean, because it's super loud. No. But yeah, you know, so those are fun shows, and we're going to try to do that again sometime. So thanks for sharing with that. And good things that are happening here in St. Louis, Missouri. We sometimes call it misery because of the weather. We just got hit by an EF2 tornado.
Whoa.
Yeah, direct hit. I had fence damage, siding damage, a tree down in the front yard. It actually went out into the street in the city of Hazelwood. That's where I'm at in St. Louis County. Cleaned it up right away that night, actually.
Wow.
And so, the community is really coming together. And I remember this old movie back in the 60s called Pollyanna. I don't know if you remember Pollyanna. I believe that was Disney who put that out. But Pollyanna is this lady, a young girl, and she played what's called the glad game. And no matter how bad it gets or, disaster or whatever, you can always talk about the glad game, and we're all okay. The drums are okay, obviously. The house is okay. The cars are okay. So we're doing good. And as far as positive things that are happening, good stuff in the music industry is I'm working on season 2 of Learning to Drum. We'll talk about that program. Coming out with my first single. Usually when I write music, it's more in an orchestral setting. And now I'm kind of venturing into the pop industry. So we'll see what happens on that. And then also, I have a wife and 3 boys, and I like spending time with them. And you don't get that time back. So sometimes I'd rather sit there and throw the football or play kickball than go and chase a gig. So we can talk
Yeah.
as well. But that's what's going on with me. How about you, Bart?
I've got just the normal stuff happening that's really good. The band's been locking and rocking for the last month. We were on the road for quite some time, and we're kind of still in that mode. We're playing a local show Thursday night, which is at a place called the Coach House. And for anybody that's local that's never been to the Coach House in Orange County, it's kind of a legendary concert venue. It's down in San Juan Capistrano, and I always say it's got a lot of great ghosts in there. And what I mean by that, there's so many people that have graced that stage. It's kind of like playing the Whiskey or something. It's been a lot of people that have graced that stage. A lot of great live albums have been recorded there. Played there many times. I love playing the Coach House. It's just a lot of fun. So we're playing there Thursday night, and just getting ready for Deck Day, and got some cool things that I forgot to talk to Chip and Rick about, but got some cool things happening for Deck Day. So yeah, just normal stuff. That's what's going on with me.
Yeah, that's happening in April, right? The end of April, 26th.
Yeah, April 26th at Aquarian Drumheads.
Nice.
I'll go ahead and put this out there now. I forgot to tell this to Rick and Chip, but I buttoned it all up this morning. They know a little bit about it. DW has a channel, a YouTube channel that they have partnered up with, and it's called 80s Recycled Metal. And the guy that is the founder of that YouTube channel has started a new YouTube channel. And what they're doing is they just go around to all these concerts and they interview rock stars and pop stars and comedians and just whoever. And they do it on a tour bus. And DW is sponsoring the tour bus along with Schecter Guitars. And that tour bus, 45-foot long diesel pusher, is going to be at Deck Day, and it's all cameraed up. So you go inside. They'll be doing the interviews from inside this tour bus. So anyway, that tour bus is going to be at Deck Day, so people can go in and see that. Sponsored by DW, and it's going to be kind of a cool thing. That's going to be cool to have that there.
That sounds really cool.
Yeah. So anyway, let's get on to our interview with Adam. Adam is in St. Louis, as he mentioned, and he is the founder of learningtodrum.com, CEO, all that sort of stuff. So we might kind of hear what that's all about and what he has going there. So Adam, let's just jump in right there. Can you tell us a little bit about learningtodrum.com, what it is that you do and how it works?
Yeah, absolutely. And Learning to Drum is a online edutainment platform housed in YouTube, but you can go to learningtodrum.com to actually go to seasons and then season 1, and you'll be able to find all the episodes there. But basically, it kind of comes back to where I started from. I had very limited resources where I grew up. My parents, of course, lower middle income family, so affording things was not always in reach, but you have to make the best of what you have. So I know that back in my day, I was born in 75, so we didn't have YouTube. We didn't have all these platforms that offered great education material. You were very fortunate to find a good drum teacher, and the two top stores, one being Fred Pierce's studio drum shop in Overland, Missouri, who still is standing today. He's the oldest single owner drum shop in the United States,
Wow.
and modern drummer. And then also Drum Headquarters, who developed HQ Percussion, and that was the real field pad. Later be bought out by Diodario. So
okay.
Yeah. So being at 10 years old, it was really hard for me to find because they didn't accept students that were under 12 years old. So I went to my uncle Donnie with a ice cream bucket and a pair of kite dowel rods, and I asked him to show me something. And I come from over 100 years of family drumming, and he showed me the double stroke roll on the ice cream bucket, and he told me to play traditional and everything. And I ended up switching back to match because it was too uncomfortable at that time. But yeah, that's how I started. And I thought to myself, I said, these are really good platforms. Everybody's putting on some really good educational material. But what about starting from the ground floor in a linear fashion? Starting from what to buy. Should I buy a drum set? Should I buy a drum pad? What kind of sticks should I buy? Things like that. So in the show, we start from the very, very basics. What is percussion and drums? Two categories, idiophones and membranophones. Then we go into, what kind of sticks and pads are out there, what you should buy. I wouldn't recommend buying a drum set right off the bat because you might start it and might not like it or continue it, like me in karate. And I talk about my experience in karate. And then from there, we have guest artists on there like Dom Famularo, who talks about the history of drum technique. Very important because it all goes back to the three founding fathers, which is Sanford A. Moeller, Billy Gladstone, and George Lawrence Stone. And each one of those different schoolings, obviously Moeller being marching, Gladstone being finger technique, and George Lawrence Stone being the free stroke. And so we get into that. Kelly Ray Tubbs was on at the first episode. Yeah, a veteran on DEC.
Yeah.
And she talks about the history of the practice pad. And then I have a good friend of mine who marched Santa Clara Vanguard, getting back into the marching and the drum corps and everything. We have him talking about his experience and the important things that are happening in drum corps and why it's necessary to do certain things to transfer over to your drum set playing or orchestral playing, and vice versa. The orchestral and the drum set can transfer over into marching. So yeah, it goes from ground zero to beyond. I have a book that's out, Learning to Drum, book 1, which talks about just a good foundation of reading rhythm, but it also talks about music terminologies like, what is a crescendo? What is diminuendo? What is pianissimo? Things like that. What's a fermata? And all those.
What's a fermata, you?
Fermata, that's right. Yeah, and by the end of the season, you have a knowledge of 14 of the 40 PAS drum rudiments, and advanced to almost intermediate to almost advanced reading level of rhythm. And season 2, we're going to get into the drum set and take it from there. So that's really what it's about.
Man, sounds good, man. I'm looking forward to seeing that stuff, man. That's cool.
Yeah. That's really cool. And I love the fact that you're putting in the rudiments and you're putting in musical dynamics and terminology, what that stuff is. Because so many times that's something that, people kind of tend to forget about as students, but also as teachers. I think it's something that's really overlooked sometimes. And I think you have to know how to speak the language, right? I mean, if I was going to be a doctor, I would know how to speak the language. I think that's very important. So that's fantastic. That's way to go.
Yeah. Thank you,
Adam.
Yeah.
Adam, tell us about your family again. You've got over 100 years of drumming in your family.
Yeah. It starts out for my great grandfather, and I got a picture of him if you go to facebook.com/learning to drum, you'll find some old pictures. My great grandfather, William Tunzi, that was from 1914, and he was in this club, but he had a snare drum in front of him, and it was told to me that he actually plays the drums or played the drums. And then his three sons, George Tunzi, which was my grandfather, Lee Tunzi, which is my great uncle, and my other great uncle, Gordon Tunzi, all three played drums. Gordon being probably the most educated, but Lee was the most successful, meaning that he played for the U.S. Army during World War II.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, a big band drummer. And he talked about, the importance of feathering the bass drum. And that really saved me a lot when I got into jazz band in college. And yeah, it kind of transferred down from George, my grandfather, to his son, Don Tunzi, my uncle, who actually inspired me to play the drums, because when I was like 3, they used to rehearse in my grandmother's house. And at that time, when I was 3, my mom was recently divorced, and she moved back in with her mom just to get her feet on the ground before, moving on to her own place and stuff. And I remember band practices down there. And I saw those drums, the blue sparkle drums. And I went up to them and I just hugged them a little bit and tapped on the head. And the bass drum's like this big to me. And, so that's where I'm at today. I try to get my son Kai, my oldest, into drums, and he was really interested. And that he was on the beginning of learning to drum, and yet he kind of just didn't practice, But years later, being in public high school, all my 3 boys have been homeschooled, but Kai, my oldest, is in high school now at Hazelwood West, and he comes to me after his first year, and he goes, "Dad, I'm going to think about joining band." And I kind of chuckled. I said, "What are you going to play?" And he goes, "Percussion." I'm like, So this is the weird thing about music. Music takes us where it wants us to go. And you might put down the pair of sticks, and not pick them up. And then 5 years later, you got this inspiration. You want to pick it up again. And that's why I have the hashtag keep swinging those sticks, is because that's right. Yeah. Because you always got to keep, practicing, I get it. It could be a little boring at times, but if you just keep swinging those sticks, no matter what, have some fun. That's what it's about. If you're not having fun, then you should be doing something else. So that's my family history pretty much in a nutshell.
Right on. Cool.
Yeah. And Adam, we have a little history. You lived in San Diego for a while, and that's how we met. And you were teaching drums here in town, and we were exchanging ideas that far back.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What was really cool is that your brother, may he rest in peace, of course, turned me on to you and because I was looking for some drum teachers before I moved back to St. Louis. And before I moved back to St. Louis, we caught your Zorro clinic. You would have Zorro come out, and good friends with Zorro and stuff. And my now wife, but then girlfriend, won the Brick of Sticks Zorro sticks.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's cool.
I gave her 1 pair and I kept the rest. Yeah.
Those Vic Bird Zorro sticks play so great. We have this little joke that they play better triplets than other sticks.
And I believe they're made out of oak, if I'm not mistaken. Is that correct?
They're a hickory. Yeah, they're a hickory. Yeah. So that's so great. Did you ever get to record with my brother? So my brother recording studio in the same band rehearsal facility where Adam taught.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I was hired by this neurosurgeon. He had some originals, and he wanted me to come in and lay down some tracks.
Yeah,
I did that, and that was a lot of fun. He brought in a big cooler full of beer, and I said, after I get done working, I'll be able to indulge. But
that's great. The neurosurgeon brought in the beer, not my brother. He was
no.
Great with all that. Yeah, that is so great. Did you play on the house kit?
No, I brought my own in. I have my own sound. I wanted to make sure that I represent myself truly the way it's supposed to be when I record. So I rarely use other people's kits unless if it's like, we're kind of all sharing a kit on stage and there's multiple bands going on or whatever. But for the most part, I bring my own stuff.
Yeah. My brother had an amazing sonar kit, and that was the house kit at his recording studio, and a bunch of Sabian cymbals, because we were Sabian cymbal fanatics right from the get-go.
Yeah.
So, yeah. If you use the house there, that was this one right here, this hi-hat, AAX studio hi-hats.
Nice. Yeah, I Sonar is a great brand. It's another brand that KHS, Mapex being one of them, and then Sonar being the other. It's a great brand. Fabulous drums, and at PASIC, I mean, they were just debuting some really, really nice finishes that Sonar's putting out these days.
Yeah. So what brought you to San Diego from Missouri?
Yeah. So being in San Diego, obviously the cost of living is astronomically high. It's even much higher today than it was back then in 99 to 2006. And I thought to myself, I mean, because it was a struggle financially to keep myself afloat. And I had at that time before I moved, I was like 40 to 50 students, and playing gigs. Liquid Blue was one of the bands I was with before I moved back. I don't know. Yeah, Rick knows about Liquid Blue. And I thought to myself, I'm just turned 30, and I'm thinking to myself, I would like to buy a house one day and start investing in myself and having something there that's going to give me some type of return instead of shelling rent money to not only the studio I was renting, but also the apartment I was living in. So it was just kind of one of those things. I moved back, and plus my family. I have all my family pretty much in St. Louis, and you don't get that time back. So I wanted to make sure I'm there with my parents and other family members, and grow old together and kind of, do it that way. And St. Louis is a great town, fabulous music scene, small town, but fabulous, as far as all kinds of different music.
Do you still gig? Are you in a band back there, and do you work with live gigs and stuff?
Yeah. So I was with the St. Louis Philharmonic for 22 seasons and retired from that. I'm with local 2197, which is the union out here in St. Louis, Missouri. And I decided to take a step back from the Philharmonic because they were going into a different direction as far as union gigs. And that was some really big, controversy right there of, you had a lot of half of the orchestra is somewhat union, whether it be a music teacher or a professional musician, in the regards of just playing. But I do freelance work pretty much. I was with the Opera Theater St. Louis. I took a private school gig. So it's pretty much whatever hires me. But in the last, I guess, 2 to 3 years, I've been really kind of taking a step back on live gigs and more focusing on the season 2 of learning to drum, writing music. And so, yeah, I do gig, it's just whoever hires me, and I'm not cheap. And I don't mean to be snooty about that, but really, if it's going to be taken away from my family or something, I'm not going to get paid $100 for a 3-hour gig.
Right.
You gotta get what you're worth for, and this, some musicians need to realize that, don't sell yourself, short or whatever,
Oh, yeah.
And we can't devalue ourselves. We can't keep the pay that was what was pay in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I have friends that they got no problem with going and playing, 3 or 4 sets and making, $70 to $100. And I'm like, no, man, no, I'm not, I'm not going to do that. It's so much work just to set up, and that's a great point, Rick, that you said, and Adam as well, don't devalue what it is that you've worked so hard for, I mean, you don't do that.
That's
hey, Adam,
go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was going to ask you we were talking about gear a little bit. You're an Aquarian drumhead artist, right?
Yeah.
And, tell us about the rest of your gear. What are you currently on right now?
Yeah, just to tag on to the playing thing, I do play every week at my church, so that's fun. We have a great setup there. They have we built a custom booth, and housing in that is a Mapex Armory drum kit. So I'm with Mapex Drums, Majestic Percussion. So they and it's again from KHS Distribution. So KHS does Majestic Percussion, Sonar, and Mapex. And I endorse Mapex and Majestic Percussion. Aquarian Drumhead since 2015. Rick was actually, I visited him in the studio right before I was kind of going up to meet Roy Burns. And a really privileged to talk to him and tell him about learning a drum and everything like that. And then Vic Firth drumsticks and mallets. Vic Firth has been a great brand that I've been using for years. They cover all my bases. And so it's pretty much a one-stop shop when it comes to any type of mallet or stick that I need to use. So that's really kind of what I've been using. Cymbal-wise, I'm not with anybody. I was actually shopping around during PASIC this year. But currently what I've been playing primarily for the most part is anything pre-64 Zildjian cymbals. And that's when they were still hand hammering and making them by hand. And then after 64, that's when they started doing the mass production because the demand was so high. I still use stuff that is contemporary with Zildjian. I have the low volumes on my drum kit here, Aquarian super pads, and also Constantinople, their K line that came out, really fabulous cymbals. Their new Avidus, that came out, I think, 3 or 4 years ago, is a really, really good. And of course, the Kuropi, as long as you get them on the lighter side, otherwise, if you get them too thick, then I don't too much enjoy that. But yeah, that's pretty much what I use.
Right on.
Yeah.
So, I got to jump in here and do this really quick. And Rick, hold on to your thought. I apologize, but we talked about Aquarian. You guys want to see a really funny picture? I don't know if this is going to show up because it's literally an old photograph. Okay, look at this.
Oh, my goodness.
Wow. That's Chris.
That's me and Chris Brady.
Yeah.
Who's that woman next to Chris?
I know, right?
Oh, look at all that hair.
Look at all this was in I don't even know what year that was, 90 something. Anyway, my wife was going through a box of old pictures. And she goes, "You got to see this." She goes, "I can't believe I took that picture. That's a picture of me and Chris, and he's going to kill me for this." I sent it to him. But
that's beautiful.
Isn't that funny? That's God, memories. Where does the time go? Anyway.
You got to put that up on the TV at Deck Day, Bart.
I will. You know what? I'll do that. I'll scan that, put it up on Deck Day.
Yeah, that'll be fantastic.
What were you going to say, Rick?
Yeah, sorry, Rick.
Well, there's two schools of cymbals, brilliant or just regular finish and natural finish. And I noticed you do not shine your cymbals. You are a natural finish guy, and they look really, really cool. So do you find that there's a difference in the tone when you shine them?
Yeah, it depends on like if I did Zildjian A's, then yeah, I'll polish them up. They're more brilliant and what have you. The rest of them, like the pre-64 that I usually play, and I don't polish at all. And as far as like the sound, I mean, there is a patina that happens with metal over time. And that adds personality to the cymbal. So I personally, it's just one of those things that I've always kind of just didn't polish my cymbals, unless if they were a certain like line of cymbals that could be polished or should be polished. But yeah, I like that dark, smoky, a lot of overtones. I mean, how I test cymbals is I don't go and just bang on them. I actually hold them and I just tap it with the side of my thumb. And I can hear the overtones and the language that it can kind of speak to the audience or myself. And that's really kind of the first test I give. And then, of course, try the crash part, the ride, and the bell part. So all those things play a part in a cymbal personality. And each one has its own personality. You can have, unless it's, I heard Sabian puts out really good stuff, and so does Peisty, to where pretty, whatever line you're looking at, same dimensions and everything pretty much kind of comes out the same. But for Zildjian, that I play the old Zildjians, I can have a 20-inch, same weight and everything, and both have two different personalities happening. So
Yeah.
I'm a big fan also of the old Turkish Ks, and own one of them. I can actually own one of them because they're that expensive. But again, it's just that smoky. I got to have a good bell for a ride. Nothing too mega or anything, but enough to cut through. But also a good wash. When I need to, because when I play jazz, I like to. You only need one cymbal technically, really, when it comes to crashing and writing and all that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah. So is
hey, Fred,
that a retail cymbal tree you have over there behind you?
Yeah.
Pretty cool.
Kind of goes over a little bit,
Yeah,
and you can see my crash cymbals down there below.
yeah.
And there's so many I got so many cymbals because I'm people like collect snare drums and they have like a wall full of snare drums. I'm the same way with cymbals, and my wife likes it because it doesn't take up that much of a footprint. So I got to get rid of some of these, but yeah, I got too many cymbals.
So our friend Fred Fisher's watching. Shout out to Fred. He wants to know, is there a difference between polishing and cleaning cymbals?
Yeah. Is that towards me or anybody?
Towards you.
Yeah. Well, I said earlier is that it just depends, in my opinion, it depends on the line of cymbals that you're playing. For instance, if you have a brilliant finish on a cymbal, you want to retain that because that's what the cymbals are for. If you have like I say, older vintage cymbals or anything, I choose not to polish them because it's a personality. You might strip that personality away if you start polishing them. And then, of course, it depends on the polishing. Some people, there's all kinds of different things like barkeepers, versus, manufacturer, cymbal cleaners and things like that. So it just also depends on what you're doing to your cymbal. I personally don't like to put heavy chemicals on a cymbal. There's a lathing that happens in the cymbal, and you could diminish that. If you're a fan of the logos, that's another reason why you may not want to polish your cymbals, because eventually those logos do fade away.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it just depends on what your taste is, what kind of music you're playing, and what works for you and the audience, the ear, most importantly.
Yeah. I think that it is definitely a personal preference thing, because I know some guys that just swear by, as soon as the gig's over, man, they're wiping every fingerprint off. And then some guys, it's like, man, when, they're just, they've been playing them forever, and left all the grime in there. One of the things that I learned at the last deck day, we had a gentleman, I forget his name. What was his name, guys, from Round Sound Cymbals? You remember his name?
Jason,
yeah, I think it was Jason. He has a company up there by Jeremy's place called Round Sound Cymbals, and he has in his garage, he buys and sells cymbals, and he shapes them. He makes cymbals. He reshapes them, he fixes them, and all this stuff. And he talked about how cymbals are made, and then when we had Andy Zildjian on, he talked about how the cymbal has to rest. And there's a whole, it's physics behind the thing, and chemistry, if you will, because the cymbals rest and the sound changes over time. So I can definitely see a difference in why you would want your cymbals not clean, some
Jason
guys,
Slota.
Jason Slota. There you go.
And there's also an importance on how you handle your cymbals. I handle my cymbals kind of like that of a record, if you can remember what records are.
Yeah. What's a record?
Yeah. And I'm on the side of the cymbal, especially if I'm in a drum shop. I'm not going to go and touch all the cymbals and have all kinds of fingerprints on them, because the oil from your hands, the dirt from your hands, things like that could, obviously affect the look of the cymbal or whatever, and possibly the sound. So I'm always handling my cymbals, put them on the cymbal stand as such. If you have brilliant cymbals, that it's definitely what you want to do, or else you're going to have to do more polishing. So That's another way to kind of think about it too, is how you're handling your cymbals when you're putting them on and removing them from your drum kit there.
Yeah.
Fred said just use mild dish soap and warm water.
Mhm.
I clean my cymbals, but not polishing. And I tried this once. I heard it. I heard this, so I tried it once. Ketchup.
I was just going to ask if you've ever
I've done that, and I had because somebody was talking about how to clean brass, and they were like, you got to put ketchup on them, and like not brass, just cymbals, but anything brass, you clean it with ketchup. So I thought, well, okay, I'll try it. So I went to the grocery store. I got the cheapest big old bottle of ketchup I could and cleaned my cymbals. And it did work. The downside was as soon as you opened your cymbal case, it smelled like you were an In-N-Out burger. You know? It worked. It worked. And it looked like somebody had, there was a mass murder that happened in my backyard when I got done because there's ketchup everywhere. But it was a mess, but it worked. It cleaned them. I don't know that I would do it again.
Cops showing up at your house. Neighbor said there's some red stains in the backyard.
Exactly. What happened here, Mr. Robley? I was just cleaning my cymbals. Sure you were.
Yeah, only in California.
Only in California. Exactly. Exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Hey,
So,
real quick. Oh, go ahead, Rick. Go ahead.
Well, so are you taking private students as well?
Yeah, that's limited too. I used to teach a full roster. I moved, so when I got back to St. Louis, I taught at Band Instrument Service for a number of years, and they closed. And so in that time, I was also building my studio down here, fully soundproofed. Soundproofingcompany.com is a great resource on soundproofing your room. And ideally, you want a room within a room. And for my budget purposes, I was decoupling with hat channel and green glue and all that stuff. So I started taking students at my studio. Then COVID hit, and then I was doing virtual lessons. And my teaching style has changed over the years. And back in the day in San Diego, it was like, teach me Travis Barker, Blink-182. Teach me Danny Carey. Teach me Max Roach. Teach me Bernard Purdy. Teach me John Bonham. There were so many hats. And, now I'm to the point where I'll teach you technique. I'll teach you where it came from. I'll teach you what you need to do to play these certain types of styles of music. But and I did a lot of transcribing. And so all that stuff, I'm just kind of like, if you want to learn Tool, go to a drummer that plays Tool, that's in a tribute band, or, et cetera. And so my teaching styles changed, and really focusing on the platform, learning to drum, because I tell people, well, go through that. If you have questions, you want to set up some lessons and really unpack some of these technical points and how that's going to work for you, then let's do that. And so a lot of times I'll have virtual students come on and we can talk about, and there is a kind of a difference between virtual teaching versus live teaching. It's kind of like dating somebody virtually. Sometimes it just doesn't always work, but there's a lot of good things about virtual learning. And so, I still take on students on a limited basis, of course. And it's got to be well worth the time, and I don't, again, want to be snooty about that. But, if somebody comes to me and hey, we got little Johnny, we just bought him a drum kit, and we want you to teach him some beats and everything. Well, I'm not going to just teach beats. It never was like that. I always incorporated the rudiment aspect into it and why you want to do that, or else you're not going to be technically sound enough to play that stuff that you want to play. Right. So really, that's kind of what I'm doing is on a limited basis, and you can go to adamtevlin.com /lessons and find out all about that.
I think that your teaching style as a teacher, this is just my opinion, but I think it should change over the years. I think if you're doing the same thing you were doing 20 years ago, you're not doing yourself or your students a service. I did the same thing for so long. It was like, and I still teach songs, and I do take kids on, but and I don't want to say on a limited basis, but I make sure that the parents and or whoever's taking care of the lessons know that, hey, I'm not a babysitter. Don't that's not what this is.
Right.
There is work to be done here, and there's going to be a big part of it that is not like, okay, we're just I mean, it is fun. I don't get me wrong, my lessons are fun, and we have laughs and we have fun, and if, like you said earlier, Adam, if you're not having fun, do something else. But I also think that it's let's take this serious. If you're going to stick your neck out and do it, let's do it. Let's not just let's not be the sprinkles on top of the icing. Let's get in there and have some substance to what we're trying to do, or at least try to.
That's right. Yeah. My students who come in, I say, we don't want to be microwave drummers. And I say, what tastes better, cooking a pizza in the microwave versus an oven? They say oven. I said, exactly. And then going on to what Dom has said, it's so important to remember these terminologies that our founding fathers or previous educators came through with education and how it developed and what it is today. I mean, all that stuff is very, very important to preserve because, 100 years from now, music's going to be much different. The performance is going to be much different, especially this generation with AI coming out and everything like that.
Right.
I think it's really important and I sneak it in there. I try not to. I say, yeah, let's learn a drum groove. What's your favorite song that you want to learn? And then I say, okay, well, in order to do this, we got to learn this. And why do we have to learn it? And executing the single stroke roll, let's take for an example. There's one of those things that when people start out, they're very stiff and they want to play the single stroke roll like that, but it's incorporating free strokes. Or rebound strokes is another terminology for that, right?
Right.
Using wrist and fingers. When you're going faster, you can tend to use more fingers. The importance of playing on a pillow. Let's take away the bounce of the drum, and let's strengthen up those fingers and wrist muscles at a much quicker rate than what you would do on a drum pad or drum. So all those things really kind of play a part in drum education.
I have a question for the panel here, for all of you and anybody watching. What if you have a student who really, really wants to drum and really is struggling, like isn't good at getting it by ear, but can't get the counting thing? I'm talking basic subdivisions, quarters, eighths, sixteenths, just like that. So is there a point where you're going to say, I don't know if I can work with you, or just keep plugging away? I'm not a dream crusher, so I'm determined to let this guy, to get him evolved and help him reach his goal. So what do you guys do?
My main thing with that is I tell every student during their first lesson, if you can say it, you can play it. So the subdivision 1 and a 2 EN, 3 and a 4 EN. I pulled that off the top of my head. We can apply that to so many different surfaces, whatever, 1 and a 2 EN, 3 and a 4 EN.
Yeah.
And I'll have a student try it, and then they and all the time. I bet you, if I had $1 for every time I said throughout the day, count it. Don't stop counting. Make sure you're counting.
Yeah.
Count. Another thing I notice is, like, they might go 1 and a 2 EN, 3 and a 4 EN, 1 and a 2 EN, 3. And it went from, okay, you're playing it, and then all of a sudden the count fades away, and then the part that you're trying to play fades away. And so as soon as it starts fading away, the playing fades away. Don't stop counting it. Back up. Do it again. I think persistence and patience. I think as a drum, as any kind of educator, I don't care if you're teaching drums, mathematics, or how to bake a cake, you have to have patience.
Right.
I always, and I'll shut up after this, I always not pounding my chest here, but I always try to be the teacher that I wish I would have had. You
Uh-huh.
know,
Yeah,
you know
yeah,
what I mean? Like,
yeah. Yeah.
this may be a really dumb question, but I really need to know it. And
Right.
that's the way I think about it.
There you go. Good stuff. Good stuff. It's like the phonetic thing too, barbecue. One end is barbecue. So
Yeah.
that I found very effective. What about you, Adam? What about you and Chip? What do you guys think of this?
I'll let Chip go first on that one, if that's okay.
Okay, well, if I had a student that's struggling with subdividing quarter notes and eighth notes, and and really had a trouble getting an ear for it,
Yeah.
I usually go back to A, C, E, and G, and I get them to say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and I try to just get them to do that in time and explain to them that the quarter notes would be A, C, E, and G, and the eighth notes in between would be B, D, and F, so I try to get them to sing that song, and most of them can do that. And from there, I kind of tie on the quarter notes and the eighth notes and I usually get them going with that. That's my last resort.
One? Do you have that in Snare Force 1, that concept?
Yeah, it's in Snare Force 1.
That's right. I thought so. Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
What about you, Adam?
Yeah, teaching for 35 years, I've had a lot of students who struggled. And yeah, patience is one of those things that you have to have as an educator. And I enjoy it because I love unlocking the padlocks of the mind of a human being.
Thank you.
The light bulb goes off. That's kind of like the reward I get from teaching. I am a very big fan of counting, and we always go slow, and we do it with a metronome. So that's really important, is to incorporate metronomes into your reading, because the metronome keeps perfect time. The human being keeps, or could keep, good relative time. We never can keep perfect time, but we can have good relative time, just like ear training. Some people have perfect pitches, and that's great, but most of us don't. So we can have good relative pitch, and so I'm not a fan of the hippopotamus or the watermelon, because that doesn't really add to what you're really trying to go for. Because as you get into more complex rhythms, you're going to want to count those. You're going to see how that, and then also the concept of rhythmical cells, which basically is a combination of any notes that make up one beat. So much like that, we're learning how to read, we sound out phonetically each letter to make the word, right? After a while, we start to commit to memory what that word means. We don't have to sound out those letters anymore. Same thing with reading. 1E and a 2 and a 3 and a 4E. And here are these rhythmic cells that, just kind of going back to what Chip was saying about the A, B, C, D. You have these words, which are combinations of notes that make up one beat, that you now commit it to memory within time using the metronome. So do I still count? Well, sure, if I have to, but for the most part, I can just read it as if I'm reading a book. And that's kind of how I really kind of parallel that to students. And it also goes into rhythm. Some people, like the old movie White Men Can't Jump, some people have more rhythmical aptitude than others. And I'm not saying white people don't have rhythm or anything, but for the most part, it's just one of those things that anybody can develop time and feel. And if you remember that movie Footloose, that guy had like no sense of dancing. We're talking about the 80s Footloose,
Right.
And but yet he was banging it into his head. A, B, C, D, E. Okay. Eventually you start getting that pulse, and that pulse is in 4/4 time the quarter note.
Right.
In 6/8 time, it's actually the dotted quarter note in Felton 2. 6/4 usually is 6 beats per measure, quarter note beat per pulse. So 7/8, you start to get a little bit more complex, but really rhythm in general, and I tell students this too, it's either compound or duple. It's either divided by 3 or divided by 2. And so when you look at it from that aspect, odd time signatures doesn't become so much of a pain or confusing point. It really actually, you start to break these down into duple or triple types of rhythms. So that's a little long-winded of an answer, but
No, it's
That's a good answer.
yeah.
great answer. Great
Yeah.
answer. I think that one of the things is, I talk about in my last book, The Rhythmic Journey. Rhythm is everywhere around us. I mean, rhythm is everywhere. If you go like this and you don't have rhythm, you got a problem, you know. And if you're playing a song and the song doesn't have that same type of rhythm or a breath, or a pulse, the song has a problem, and you have to learn to harness that, right? And sometimes you can give examples to people as far as rhythm, and especially, okay, in Missouri, I'm sure you have an open road where there's a long stretch of country road, let's say, and there's some fence posts, right? Well, drive along that road and roll down the window and listen to the fence posts go by, and then speed up and they'll go by faster, and slow down and they'll go by slower. Rhythm is everywhere. And that might be a weird example, but it's there,
Right.
and you can hear it and you can feel it. And sometimes just even that example, that might be a strange example, but there's those, and this goes along with the patience aspect, I think. If you're patient enough to explain that to a student, eh, maybe that one won't stick, but maybe it will. Like, oh, I totally get that. So those aspects of just throwing things out there and seeing what sticks sometimes really helps people understand rhythm and how it works, and how it works in our lives, not just in music.
Yeah, that's a great point, Bart. As a matter of fact, and you all know this, that everybody has different learning styles.
Right.
So what works for somebody might not work for the other person. So as an educator, I think it's important to be able to cater to those different learning styles. And it's not one set learning, like meaning like, oh, there's 4 learning styles and no, everybody's unique in their own self, and you got to get to know your student.
Yeah.
The one thing, especially new students or any student for that point, but I make sure I say that student's name at least once in our lesson,
Yeah.
to know that I'm connecting with them. And I also share my own personal stories and my own personal struggles.
Mhm.
Yeah, I still make mistakes. As a matter of fact, on learning a drum, I make a mistake, and it's
Yeah.
okay to make a mistake. Beethoven said, playing without passion is injustice, but playing a mistake with passion is excellence, something to that effect, and yeah. And then as far as what you were talking about, rhythms everywhere, so is frequency. And
Yeah. Good point.
so,
Yeah.
so everything around us is music in a sense. And one thing, yeah, absolutely. And the one thing that I tell students also is the concept of time, the time space continuum, and basically that time ironically does not exist in music. And here's why: because you're thinking about what you just played, the past, you're thinking about what you're playing next, the future, and then you're also thinking about at the same time what you're playing currently. So
Mhm.
past, present, future is all one. And so time is not linear as most of us humans would like to think about it, but it's an actual, I wouldn't even say cyclical, it's more spherical. And so when you're looking at it at that aspect, then you start to become one with what you're doing. You're being present with what you're doing. And I think that's the important thing. Oh, I'm getting nervous before a gig or whatever, what's happening now, and let
Right.
it go. Unlearn what you've learned. And so, yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there, that everything we're hearing and experiencing is music within itself. As a matter of fact, I believe the universe vibrates in an E flat major chord. So
All of that stuff you're talking about is has so many implications, Adam, about being present. That's check out the Edgar Tolle, The Power of Now, which is a bestseller. It's all about being present and being in the moment, and techniques for that for our own personal group growth. And that fits in exactly what you're talking about with music. And so it's kind of full circle. It's really, really exciting stuff. So really,
I think that's
Adam.
one of the hardest things to teach to a student or to oneself too, is that when you're let's put ourselves in a situation where you're playing a piece of music, and it can be whatever, in a recording session, in a live setting, in a lesson, whatever. You're playing that piece of music. You're actually part of that music now because you're the one creating it. I mean, you're even if it's a cover tune, whatever, it's Back in Black,
right.
you're part of that song. It's within you and you're in it. And I know that's kind of deep and everything, but if we're talking about the vibration of the universe, I can go there.
Good
So
stuff.
anyway, Chip, you had something. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to step on you.
I was just curious. It's off topic. It's not about the spherical space-time continuum. I had a question that Adam talked about recently before the show. You said something about a can of beans.
Yes. Yes.
What's the
Yes.
can of beans story?
Yeah, no, this is great. Well, you had an episode, you guys had an episode, how to have a positive, or how to stay positive. Okay. We all artists can struggle at times on trying to stay positive. But I remember one time, and this was probably back in 2013 or 14, I just started formulating my ideas for learning a drum. And the gap that I have, of course, is finances. If I had all the money in the world, then I can build a really cool studio and have a team of people do this, show for me. But you were on a certain level to where you were in your car and you're like, you know what? I don't know where my next kid's coming from or my next student's coming from, but what I do have is this can of beans. And the can of beans, that's what I got. And you're just talking about it, and it's okay to have just a can of beans sometimes and eat them in your car, something to that effect. And it really inspired me because it told me that no matter what, you have to keep moving forward. Dan Famulero, one of my mentors, says onwards, upwards. There's a reason for that. And I think it's really important, and that really inspired me, Chip. So thanks for bringing that up.
Oh man, thank you. I appreciate that. I really do.
And people may not know that you were on David Letterman.
No, I was.
And you could be on David Letterman one day, but then in another day you can
eat a can of beans.
Eating a can of beans, right?
Yeah.
Sean Fuller. You guys familiar with Sean Fuller, Florida Georgia line?
Yeah.
Yeah. He was a Mapex artist, and he was doing great with Florida Georgia Line, and then they just switched up their band, and he was without a gig. He went back to I believe carpentry and other trades that he used to do that he knew how to do, but he had to support a family. Now he's with Tyler Hubbard, I believe. I think that's his name, Hubbard.
Okay.
So again, it's, an artist is one of those things that it could be feast or famine, and you have to stay positive. You have to keep moving forward and upwards. And a can of beans is one of those great examples of somebody doing that. So I appreciate that.
That's a wonderful story.
Man.
I want to throw this out there before we end the show because of the story you just said about Chip and the positive attitude and the can of beans. I also think it's very, very, very important to be thankful. And I don't want to end this on a downer, so I'm going to turn it into a positive spin. A very good friend of the Sam Morrison Band, the group that I play for, a gentleman by the name of Bruce Wall. Bruce was the guitar tech and is a guitar builder for a gentleman by the name of George McCorkle. George McCorkle was the primary guitar player and songwriter for the Marshall Tucker Band. He wrote Can't You See, Heard It in the Love Song, all these tunes. Anyway, Bruce, we went out and saw him while we were on tour. He lives in Arizona. He comes and sees us all the time, and he's suffering from bladder cancer, and so it's stage 4. So he's not in great health right now, and so I want to ask everybody out there who watches this show and might see this, please send your thoughts and prayers and good vibes to Bruce, because Bruce is a hell of a guy and a dear friend of the Sam Morrison bands. And just salt of the earth. He's a humanitarian, an activist for animal rights, and does all kinds of great things there. Just a great guy. So please send good positive vibes for him there. And I think that's another good thing to stay in a positive mindset, because you don't there's no reason to go to bed depressed tonight, because you still got breath in your lungs, and if you have your health, you have everything. Because you know what? If right now, all 4 of us have a lot of problems that we're going to have to deal with today. But the second that you lose your health, you have one problem, and all the other problems go in. That's all you focus on. So please, keep that good positive attitude. And believe me, I'm talking to myself right now when I say this. I really am. Keep that good positive attitude, and keep your sights lifted, keep yourself lifted. And Adam, thank you so much for being on the show.
Learningtodrum.com.
Learningtodrum.com. I'm so glad that we ran into each other at NAMM.
Yeah.
I want to thank my friends Rick and Chip for putting up with me. And I want to thank my friend Jeremy Steinkohler, who's not here. Don't forget, get your tickets to Deck Day coming up on April 26th at Aquarian Drumheads. You will be an Aquarian artist for the day. You've got a snare drum by Gretsch we're giving away. We got a Sabian cymbal we're giving away. We got a Paiste cymbal we're giving away. We got a D6 microphone from Onyx Microphones we're giving away. I got one of those little Bastardos right here. Look at that, baby. Look at that. We're going to be giving one of those away. So anyway, everybody have a great day.
Adam.
Thanks, Adam.
Thank you. Appreciate your time, and thanks for having me on. And we'll do it again sometime.
Let's do it again.
Keep
Great.
seeing you next, gentlemen.
Rick, give us some drumming, baby.
All right, so check it out. I'm going to play a drum beat. We're going to try something new here. I'm going to play a drum beat to a famous song. I'm going to play 4 bars of it. If you are watching, none of us 4 on this panel are eligible for this, but if you follow Deck on the next show, in comments, you tell us what song I played, what the drum beat is, the name of the song, and the artist. If you get it, I will give you either a copy of How to Build a Drum Groove, whatever copy, or a Rick Stojak Drum Studio T-shirt.
Okay, go.
Or what about a dream date with Chip Ritter?
Or a dream with Chip Ritter. So just tune in now and say Rick played the drum beat to the song.
All right.
Fill it in. All right.
Hit it.